All right, welcome into the Important Nonsense Podcast. Steve Bonham, Neil Smith, Mike Manning, 32 teams in 32 days. Today it is Tampa Bay. It used to be Champa Bay, and then it was Crab Lake Central for a few years there, but it's things are looking better now. And remember, for a little while, it was Kyle Trask Town, but now it's back to Tampa Bay.
For
Neil,
what?
you excited?
For a week.
Like a week, 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was Kyle Trask for a week.
There's 2 weeks of panic, and then
it might have been Blaine Gabbert. What do we know?
It was Jimmy Garoppolo. We all know
it was going to be Jimmy. Yeah, it was guaranteed going to be Jimmy.
100%.
If things were in a different universe,
one or the other.
Yeah,
but probably
in a different universe, there was no chance they were going in with either Kyle Trask or Blake Gabbert.
We all Jimmy has always been destined to replace Tom Brady. Okay, happened in New England. It'll happen in Tampa. It'll happen with Giselle. Just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. Jeez. Neil, you excited for the Bucs today?
Stick to football. Don't bring Giselle into this.
Yeah.
Don't.
Well,
You yell at
saying. Everybody needs a good backup. Okay. The man holds a clipboard really well.
He does. He looks great doing it.
Looks pretty.
He looks really good.
He does best, but
to answer your question,
commercials.
To answer your question directly, yes, I am excited of that because keen students of the alphabet will note that we're in the T's, which means that there's light at the end of the tunnel here. I love doing these shows; they're a lot of fun, but I cannot stress to people at home a lot of work goes into this. So it's only natural as we get closer to the end of the alphabet that it's like, yes, we're almost there. Plus, it's also the start of the football season. We're so close that I can taste it. We're finally going to be moving on from the preseason and get into real, actual, meaningful football. So I'm excited. Mike, you excited?
Yeah. I mean, this is Tampa Bay, any Tom Brady-led offense is going to be interesting to be able to do for fantasy. But we've got some interesting rankings between us and the ECR when it comes to some of these players. So I like this episode.
All right. Well, we will get into that right here in a second. But first, I will preface this like I always do. It is August 17th. We are pre-recording these episodes. So if anything seems off news-wise, information-wise, that is why. We will have our wrap-up show for us next Friday. But for you, this Friday, the 26th of August, live. So you can ask us all your questions there. But again, anything before that, patreon.com/importantnonsense. Sign up, get in the Discord, ask us all your questions all the time. For the top $5 tier, you get literally everything we do, which is the betting stuff, it's the projections, it's the rankings, it's the stat book, which is worth every single penny in and of itself. And yeah, it's a good time in the Discord. That's the place to be. So come hang out with us there. And then, of course, everything here is 12-team PPR. So if you play in a different format, then make sure you are adjusting accordingly. But we will get into it with the Bucs. Tom Brady. Have you heard of him?
No. Who that is?
He's the guy always ahead of Jimmy Garoppolo on the depth chart. That's how you know.
I heard he's
returning for his age 45 season. What a time to be alive when he retired. Made a whole documentary about it. ESPN cried very aggressively for weeks. And by weeks, I mean like half a week, maybe 2 weeks at most. And then he came back. Decided, you know what, all this time at home with my family, not worth it. Until, of course, he got to the preseason. And then he was like, you know what, I need some time away. Just spend some time with my family.
It's been very confusing.
Right. He can't make up his damn mind. But
no, so much so that they're making auto rental car commercials based on that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like, God only knows what he's getting paid for those. But yeah, it's become a running joke. It's a meme at this point that he can't decide what he wants to do.
But I mean, Tom Brady's Tom Brady. Is there a lot to discuss here? Like, we all have him basically ranked the same, ECR the same. He's in that tier 3. Outside of the runners and then the young guys, he's in the statue tier.
Yeah, I mean, he's atop that tier of guys. This is a high passing offense that led the league in pass attempts, led the league in passing rate, and Tom Brady is just good. Like, he has a lot of weapons, and he's really good.
Hashtag analysis.
Yeah. In the red zone last year, he had 30 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Like, he throws the ball a lot in the red zone, and he does it really well. So the only reason that he is at the back end of a QB1 for the top 12 QBs is because, like we said, he can't run. Definitely not going to have any rushing floor. And as we said in the Jalen Hurts comparison and the Trey Lance analysis, only 2 QBs since 2014 have had less than 500 rushing yards and been the QB1 in points per game for the season. It was Aaron Rodgers and it was Patrick Mahomes, who both have much more of a mild rushing upside than Tom Brady. Unless they're at the 1 yard line, Tom Brady's not doing anything.
Well,
even then now.
It's that, and for me, he's 45. So
he does eventually have to stop.
The Father Time's still undefeated. So Tom's giving him a hell of a fight.
I was going to say, this is the best fight I've ever seen against Father Time, but not going to win it.
Yeah, it's got to taper off eventually.
Eventually, the doctor who's not a doctor that he employs, even he will be unable to assist in the fight against Father Time. Yeah, allegedly. Allegedly,
avocado and tequila can only do so much for you.
Vegan M&Ms too.
Whatever.
Only that can only take you so far. But we've all got him, I think, probably in the same tier, right? Top of tier 3. At least Steve, you and I will. So there's not a lot to discuss here. He's good enough to support the plethora of weapons that we will now talk about.
All right, running back. Leonard Fournette was 6th in the NFL with 249 touches before getting injured in Week 15. He should continue to see that stranglehold on the backfield touches with little competition around him. The only quote-unquote competition that he had last season was Ronald Jones, and he gone. And now it is Keyshawn Vaughn behind him. You still have the ghost of Giovanni Bernard. And then Rachaad White, who they drafted this season to be the, I guess, heir apparent. But there's 2 years on that Fournette deal that they re-signed him to. So I talked about during the rookie drafts back in May that Rachaad White's an interesting prospect, but he didn't grade out very well for me. And you're looking at least a year until he touches the field, maybe 2, depending on how well Leonard Fournette plays and if Keyshawn Vaughn does anything at all, given the opportunity that he's going to get. But we'll start with Uncle Len. How you guys feeling about Lenny this season?
Top 10 running back, to put a fine point on it.
All right.
I mean,
agreed.
There's not a lot of analysis here either, similar to Tom Brady. You're talking about, and Leonard Fournette, he's not 45, but he's no spring chicken himself at this point. So you're talking about somebody we've seen do it before. Remember when it was a conversation between Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones, and then Leonard Fournette's like, wait, this is all I have to do is kind of try.
Right. Just got to beat this guy?
Yeah. Oh, sure, I can do that. It's kind of how I feel about him versus Keyshawn Vaughn.
Right, let me start trying.
And then let me not weigh 260 pounds when I show up to camp. Okay, I've lost 15 pounds. Easy. Done. Mm-hmm. Problem solved.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that he's going as far down as he's going in most drafts. His ADP is sitting around, RB 13.
Yeah.
And he's behind guys. The third round is insane to me. Yeah. If I can get him at the beginning of the second, I'd be happy.
Right.
Because he played well last season. This offense is still he saw targets as well as rushes. He has huge touchdown upside, obviously, with the offense being as well. The only thing that you're looking at here is the offensive line is taking a step back. There is a downgrade in his interior offensive line. But that's not enough for me to push him behind guys like Javonte Williams and them.
No, not even close. Because at least
to wrap up what you were talking about there, Leonard Fournette last season finished in total points as RB6 in PPR, and he missed 3 games.
Yeah.
In points per game, he was RB4, just behind well, I guess technically RB3 because Derrick Henry would be in that mix as well. But if you played at least 10 games, it was Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, and then Leonard Fournette. That was it. So, I mean, he had a hell of a season last year. And again, like I said, that was with better competition for touches, and he still dominated the touches out of the backfield.
We're not sure if Giovanni Bernard can even stay healthy. I mean, does he still have that mustache?
I mean, that was the only thing keeping him healthy. So
That's
I
the
was gonna
real
say,
analysis here,
that-
Mike. Yeah, that's a
If he
great
doesn't have that
question.
mustache under anymore,
Hold
we got to
on.
take him down another notch down the rankings.
I gotta Google it.
Google
I
mustache.
didn't think to check for a current picture of Giovanni Bernard prepping for this. It's a good idea. Does he still have that police officer mustache?
And then we've seen Keyshawn Vaughn.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay's seen Keyshawn Vaughn. Like they're not happy with him.
Well, I was
Tom's
going to
not
say
happy
they've
with
seen
him.
Keyshawn Vaughn, and that's why they spent a 3rd-round pick on Rachaad White.
Yeah, so not really too worried about Leonard Fournette like taking snaps off or something like that.
But that's also kind of my reasoning here as well, because there was a bunch of Rachaad White hype in the preseason or in the pre-draft, and I'm saying pump the brakes on it because we were doing the exact same thing with Keyshawn Vaughn, and he ends up on the practice squad, and he ends up playing special teams and barely touching the field last season. It would be very difficult for White to outperform the 2-3 guys ahead of him on the depth chart to get any kind of meaningful touches this season. Like, yes, Leonard Fournette has dealt with injuries. Giovanni Bernard has dealt with injuries. You're talking about both of those guys going down, plus Keyshawn Vaughn playing poorly. It would be the perfect storm for Rachaad White to get on the field. And even then, what does he do? Like, how much does Tom Brady trust him in pass protection? The rookie. Like, how much does he rely on him in the passing game at all?
Yeah, we could easily just see him go like 5 wide at that point.
Yeah. Well, then this
Almost
becomes
every play.
this becomes the issue with Rachaad White as it relates to this season. You can't be on the field with Tom Brady and not be good in pass pro. And frequently that's the hardest thing for these rookies is getting to grips with pass pro at the NFL level coming from college because it doesn't work the same way. And also, Rachaad White is not a big person, just generally speaking. He's not a big guy. So it's going to be hard for him to really stick his nose in early in his career and pass block up to a rate that he can be on the field and not be a liability. I think this is why Giovanni Bernard is still there.
Yeah.
Because you keep the veteran around to do that dirty work because you've seen Keyshawn Vaughn in pass pro and it's unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. Unless he's completely turned to the corner from where we last saw him last year, he's not good enough in pass pro to really be on the field either, which is why I think they give Giovanni Bernard that teeny little contract to bring him back because say what you will about Giovanni Bernard, he is good in pass pro, despite the fact that he's not very good. But that's a skill he learned. He didn't come into the league like that. He's learned how to do that over a career. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little. That's why I'm a little confused as to the general Fournette rankings because Fournette is going at 12 in the ECR. You just said it. It's less in ADP. Yeah. I've got him at 10. I thought I was going to be getting taken to task for being too low. You've got him at 6 and 7 respectively. And I don't understand how we've made it this far when we just kind of ran it down. Keyshawn, if anything was to happen to Fournette, what do we think happens? Because in my opinion, it's a committee.
Well, not only is it a committee, but they sign someone. I mean, look at last year when they signed Le'Veon Bell. It's just they are in win now mode because you're not building for the future with a 45-year-old quarterback. So they will sign or trade for whatever veteran running back they need to fill the void and take touches. If Leonard Fournette goes down, this will be the second time I've said it now, but if Leonard Fournette goes down, the starting running back on this team is Mr. Not on the roster right now.
I agree with that. There's no handcuff for Leonard Fournette because it's not on the team at this point.
Everybody keeps trying to make White it, but it's not. That's not going to happen.
We'll talk about that next season. Rachaad White is one that I was pounding the table for in Dynasty.
Right.
I think he has a role in Dynasty, but you're going to have to be a little bit patient here for at least 1 year, possibly 2.
It's a long-term investment.
It's a long-term investment for a player that I happen to believe in talent-wise. But it's not something I want to invest in for redraft for the 2022 season.
Yes.
Leave that on the waiver wire. If it becomes relevant, great. Know what it is, because I don't believe in Giovanni Bernard long term, because how could you? And I don't believe in Keyshawn Vaughn generally. So that's how you kind of get to there as it relates to Rachaad White. But there's nothing. It's concerning to me. It's weird that Leonard Fournette's going to be a value.
Yeah.
Weird. Strange.
If any time I see him at the end of the second round in any draft I've done thus far, I snag him right away.
Yeah.
I don't even have to, like, there's no time that has to go off the clock. So it's just boom, easy.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you're saying, to me, it almost feels like cheating. You know what I mean? Because I can have a top 5 pick. I can theoretically get one of the top 5. I can get like Austin Eckler off the board and then pair him with Leonard Fournette, who I also have projected in my top 5, ranked number 6. But
that is exactly how one of the PFF league that I am a part of, it went Austin Eckler for me at 3, and then in the second I got Leonard Fournette at the back end. I was like,
feels like cheating.
Oh, easy.
It's like, wow, this league's already over. That's amazing. Yeah. Or even in Superflex, getting like Lamar Jackson at 3 or 4, and then getting Leonard Fournette when he comes back around in the second round, getting a top QB and a top 5 running back. It's too easy. Our wide receiver, Mike Evans. They signed Russell Gage. They got Chris Godwin coming back from an ACL injury. They also signed the ghost of Julio Jones. So people like me that love themselves some Jalen Darden, it's not going to happen. Just doesn't feel like it's going to happen. Long term either. I just
pound on the table for Jalen Darden. It's not going to go anywhere.
It's rough. It's a rough situation for him. But we'll start at the top. Mike Evans. I still believe he is the number 1 guy here in Tampa Bay. Me personally. This is the 9th year of his career. He has hit 1,000 yards receiving every single year. That is amazing, especially considering some of the QB play he's had throughout that career. The fact that he stayed with the same team for his entire career and has hit 1,000 every single year.
Also, given how many hamstring injuries he's had in the 9 years, that you don't want to talk about injury prone as like a thing, but Mike Evans' hamstring is a thing. Like, he's had a lot of hamstring injuries, and even with them, he still hits that 1,000 yards every year like clockwork. It's crazy.
But he has been Tom Brady's favorite touchdown monster in the red zone. 13 plus touchdowns in each of the last 2 seasons. So Mike Evans, right now I've got him at 6. Neil, you've got him at 7. Mike, you've got him at 8. The ECR has Mike Evans at 9. And ADP has him at 9 as well. He is going overall 1 pick behind Leonard Fournette. So they're high-fiving in ADP at this point. What are you guys thinking about Mike Evans this season?
I think expect another season like what you've seen. Another 1,000-yard year, another huge red zone target percentage type of deal. Yes, you're going to have to deal with some weeks where you're going to be pulling your hair out watching the injury report because he's got some sort of hamstring or quad or whatever. Doesn't really seem to matter in the overall. He goes out and produces every single time. He's getting up there. I also will acknowledge that. He's been in the league for, as you said, 9 years. He's not exactly a young man anymore. At some point, the dance will stop, and something bad will probably happen to Mike Evans. Father Time is undefeated. Don't think it's this year. And for as long as Tom Brady is there, I really don't see how you could justify having him outside of the top 10. We can have a conversation if it was Kyle Trask or something like that. But as long as Tom Brady is still there and still playing at the level he's been at, I have zero problems. Mike Evans is the one I feel the best about comfortably.
Yeah, Evans is going to sit there and he's going to be a headache during the season with up and down type games because that's just what he does. He seems to just go off for 31 week and then have like 5 points the next week. But at the end of the year, you can know what to expect. In terms of a total point output, you should have an idea of what you're going to get out of Mike Evans. It's just going to be, do you want to deal with the roller coaster of a season that you're likely going to have?
That's really what it is. It's the touchdowns. Saying he's touchdown dependent, I think, is a little misleading, which is what I hear a lot of, because the touchdowns help him, certainly, obviously. How could they not? But at the same time, like I already mentioned, every year of his 8 years leading up to this one, he's been over 1,000 yards. Every year in his career, he's had at least 67 receptions. If you just look at his last 3 seasons, age 26 to 28, he's averaging 114 targets, 70 receptions, 1,066 yards, and 12 touchdowns. That's his average season over the last 3 years. I'm not even counting the boom years in his first 5 when he was young in the NFL. This is his recent work with Tom Brady. An average season for him is better than the best season for most wide receivers in the league.
And if you're looking at, like, say Godwin doesn't exactly return to form right off the bat, which is not out of a realm of possibility. Mm-hmm. He's coming off of an ACL injury that was, I think, week 15 last season.
It is. We're going to get into that in a moment. I have it right in front of me. It is week 15.
So
he suffered that injury.
Okay, maybe that's the case. Obviously, we don't have Gronkowski anymore, so that's another touchdown guy that's out of the situation. It's just things point. It's Mike Evans is just very safe player to pick at the wide receiver position, especially for some of the guys that are going around him.
No one's going to go ooh and ah when you draft Mike Evans in your draft, but he's frequently a league winner.
Yeah.
Where it's like what you get is so much higher than what you have to put in if you're just willing to deal with a little bit of the headache. I find in my personal experience that I end up with a lot of Mike Evans because I am willing to deal with it. And you don't overreact to the fact that he got a 5 1 week. It just doesn't matter in the long term. It sucks and you might lose, but overall you're going to win a lot more of those tilts than you're going to lose.
Yeah. Like I said, too, if you take those numbers from his average season, last year that would have ranked as wide receiver 13. I mean, you're telling me that's his average. That's his floor is wide receiver 13. So, yes. And like you mentioned, too, no more Gronk to steal those red zone looks as well. So, number 2, Chris Godwin. Avoided the PUP list after tearing his ACL in week 15 against New Orleans. The question will be if he returns to his usual self or if he is held back by the injury at all this season. We were talking about this in July, working through Underdog, projecting out the team that Chris Godwin was going to miss the first 6 weeks, start the year on PUP. Then all of a sudden he wasn't going to start on PUP. It was only going to be 2 to 4 weeks. So he would be back for a majority of the season, so he was making really good progress. Now it looks like he's on pace to actually play in week 1, so he's not going to miss any time based on this ACL injury, but it is an ACL injury. So coming back, how well does he perform? Neil, you've got him at 29. Mike, you've got him at 17. The ECR has him at 28. I feel like part of that is baking in the idea that he misses time, so that may just be maybe not catching up to it. ADP has him at 21, which I think makes slightly more sense. I've got him at wide receiver 12, and I have him so high because, as I said, I do all my projections and everything based on a points per game basis. So right now I have it as Mike Evans playing the full 16 games, finishes wide receiver 7. Chris Godwin playing 14 games, so I've got him missing 3. Ends up as wide receiver 8. I mean, it is what it is. It's the volume is going to be there for the two of these guys at the top. They have the clear-cut lead on the target share, and with Tom Brady throwing them the ball, with the yardage they can put up, and with getting in the end zone, both of these guys should be able to put up highlight numbers. And like I said, I've got Godwin right now at 12, but as always, that's just my projection and ranking. I've got him as a back end wide receiver 1, but he's going in ADP at 21. So you can wait on it and get him. I'm not saying reach, but to me, it's another somehow significant value on Tampa Bay's offense.
Yeah, I will say I'm waiting for a little more information here before I move him back up. He won't be in my final preseason rankings before draft weekend. He won't be at 29. But here's my concern. What you said sounded a lot more like a certainty than I believe it to be, in the sense of he's gonna play week 1. We know this. Anyone listening to this, I want to make sure that we don't know that yet. It's trending that direction.
Yeah, I said he's on pace.
He avoided the PUP list for sure. We know that did happen. That's good. Yesterday, literally yesterday, he got his first work in 7-on-7 drills.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. That's good. He's made it. He's getting some level of work in camp. These are all positive things. But we're not going to see him at game speed until he goes back out there. The reports are trending in the direction to where I will likely move him up firmly into wide receiver 2 range, probably somewhere around 25, 24, something like that. Maybe a little higher. We'll see how the rest of the world shakes out here over the next week. But that's where I'm trending to have him for the season, because you're going to bake in some kind of risk here based on the idea that we haven't seen him run at game speed since he got hurt in week 15 last year. Also, week 15 last year, that's going to be a really quick turnaround for an ACL. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
So, saying all of that, he is going to come up in my rankings a little bit. That ranking was based on the idea that I didn't think he was going to get back on the field until probably week 4 or 5. So he's ahead of schedule. That's fabulous. I have no complaints about the player. He's been good in this offense for a number of years at this point. Brady trusts him when he's out there and he can actually play. So 14 games is probably about a fair projection at this point, but I'm waiting for a few more hurdles to get cleared before I officially move him back up. And I think the ECR is doing something very similar to what I'm doing. It's a little bit of a hedge at this moment, but I will say, given the ADP at 21, what do you suppose if we were to take the temperature on that at the wrap-up show, like mark it down? The ADP as of 8/17 when we pulled this was 21. What do you think it's going to? Because I think it'll move up slightly. I don't think you're going to get that good of a value on Godwin if you're drafting what we normally recommend you do, which is effectively Labor Day weekend. I think he's going to trend up as the news continues to roll out. So it's nice that he's a value right now, but I don't know that he's going to be such a huge value if you draft in a couple weeks when we normally recommend you do so.
Yeah, I agree that he's likely to move up in ADP and probably a good bit, especially if there's any inclination that he might suit up for the week 2 preseason game, then he's just going to skyrocket. Even if he just plays like one play or like a couple plays, just the fact that he got back on the field in the normal veterans preseason game, that's going to shoot him up like crazy. But I mean, if you're looking at Godwin in general, he's the slot guy. Tom Brady loves the slot. No matter where it was, if it was from Tampa Bay, if it was in New England, he's always loved the slot. And actually, when I looked up, Godwin led the team in red zone targets, not Mike Evans last year.
Right.
And
you wouldn't think that because of the touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
He was top 5 in the NFL too. So Godwin was getting good looks and the right looks.
Yeah.
And a lot of them. So I think that there's obviously risk involved in this. You're taking a guy that, as we've said multiple times here, tore his ACL in week 15. That's not that long ago in terms of a recovery. But if he is healthy then I can guarantee, like if he didn't tear his ACL last year, I can basically say that he probably would go back and forth with Mike Evans.
This conversation would have been over because we
Yeah.
would have just done both guys in tandem and been like, those are the two you want. Moving on to the ancillary pieces.
Yeah.
That's the only reason that we're having this conversation is when he tore his ACL. Because if he tore it at the beginning of the year, we probably
And I think it's also
anyway.
important to remember that it's not only when he tore it, but when he has the surgery.
Yeah.
So, like we talked about in the Dallas show with Michael Gallup, he also had a late ACL tear, but he didn't have his surgery until mid-February. So the timeline to get back on the field and back into your normal workout and everything is 6 to 9 months after you have the surgery. And you go through all the rehabs, you check all the boxes. So for Michael Gallup, that's why he's behind right now, is because any time between now and essentially December is when he's supposed to be back on the field, and we just don't know because they were saying he's behind schedule and behind that time frame. Chris Godwin had his surgery on January 2nd. So he's already done all of his rehab. He's already worked his way back. He's going to have some time where he has to get up to speed maybe that first month. But like I said, I'm projecting him to miss the first 2 games of the season. And still, he played 14 games last year and had 127 targets for 1,100 yards and only 5 touchdowns. So I've got him projected for 120 and 940 and 7 touchdowns.
If you were guaranteed they were healthy, both of them healthy for the season, I'd take Godwin over Evans.
Yeah, I could see it.
I probably wouldn't do that, but I wouldn't necessarily
I wouldn't argue with it.
I wouldn't say anything about it. Yeah, it would be like, okay.
It's a pick your poison type situation.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've got him at 7 and 8. So
yeah,
whichever you prefer.
He's significantly younger than Mike Evans, I would say that.
So the question then is Russell Gage. Russell Gage was a sexy sleeper pick most of the summer until they signed Julio Jones. And that kind of just threw a whole wrench into it. I was right there with Russell Gage is the unsung hero of this offense. I had the numbers with Antonio Brown, but I'm almost positive at one point there were all 3 of them in the top 20.
Yeah, for a while there, for
Antonio
a little while.
Brown, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin all together in points per game were in the top 20 at one point. So why not do the same thing with Russell Gage? Julio Jones is why not. So I still think of the 2 of them, Russell Gage ends up with more targets, more yards, more involved in the offense just because he can play more. They signed him to be this number 3 guy for a reason. But part of what was going to help his value was filling in when Chris Godwin wasn't there. And now here comes Chris Godwin sprinting back to make sure nobody takes his job. So Russell Gage, Julio Jones, are you guys in on either of these as a late round sleeper? Or are you just completely out on it after the top 2?
If they fell to me, I guess. But based on what I've been seeing, they're not falling in the way that I would like. There's somebody in every mock or in every real draft you do that sees TBB, receiver, and is like, oh, perfect. Like, let me get that. One of them will be the new Antonio Brown, and I'm like, will they? Or will they just split Antonio's production down the middle and then making them both functionally useless? Because that's my concern with anyone that isn't Evans and Godwin is what do you do with it? So I've got Gage still rated at wide receiver 51. It's lower than the ECR. I was all excited about getting Russell Gage. We've been doing this show for how long, Steve? You know how much I love Russell Gage. Like, free Russell Gage, put him on a real team, and they finally did it. Now it's all going the wrong direction. So I'd be okay with it if I could get him in the 50s as a flex to see if I'm lucky. Might be okay with that. Similar type of thing with Julio Jones. I've got him at wide receiver 60. So if I could get him in the 60 neighborhood as a late round flex, sure, maybe the old man's got something left in the tank that I can leverage at some point. But it's very hard to get really excited about things that you're talking about wide receiver 50 whatever and 60 whatever. Not super excited about either one anymore. And it just, by the way, just to do I'll close the wide receiver room. Don't care about anything else. Don't care about Tyler Johnson. Don't care about Scotty Miller, Perryman, Grayson, Darden. Don't care. Just not interested in any of it. None of it matters except for these 4 guys. And I'm arguing that 2 of them are ancillary pieces at this point because we just don't know. It's muddied it too much for me to get super excited about it. Mike, tell me why I'm crazy. Am I crazy?
I mean, I'm actually in on Gage. I do have faith and have some confidence at the very least that Gage is going to be the guy, and he is going to have sustainable value with even a healthy Evans and Godwin, and even a healthy Julio. I think that, Julio didn't look great last year. He couldn't stay on the field last year.
Yeah.
And so now we're just making him a year older and expecting much different. Like, is there a possibility that Julio Jones is, the lead guy that has a return to grace and has a good season in Tampa Bay? Sure. Am I expecting it? No. So I'm fine with Julio being somebody else's pick. If I'm going to get one of the wide receiver 3 or 4s in Tampa Bay, my choice is Gage, and I'm just happy that he's starting to fall back down because of the Julio news, that he was rising up so much that it was crazy. Like, there was no value anymore, just because we thought that Godwin was going to miss even up to 6 games.
Yeah.
It was just too much. He was rising too high. So now that the Godwin news of him coming back right away and the Julio Jones news, Tom Brady brought this guy in. He recruited him, and they paid him a good contract.
Yep.
Much more than Julio's getting.
Right.
Wouldn't they have just signed Julio in the beginning? It's not like any other team was really fighting against him for it. So I have the confidence in Gage.
Russell Gage right now, wide receiver 48 in ADP, going in the 10th round. Julio, wide receiver 62 in the 14th. So, like, on name, based on the rankings here, Neil, you have a better shot at getting Julio than you do getting Gage. But like you said, in every room, like, there's always someone willing to reach on the name.
Yeah, I'm not getting him at that. Is not what I'm seeing at those.
And I'll just have neither one, and I'm okay with that, because odds are, based on my other rankings, I'm already going to have 2 wide receivers from Tampa Bay. I don't need a third.
You better get Tom Brady if you're going to sit there and get every other wide receiver.
And then I'll get Leonard Fournette. Just complete the set.
Play the whole team.
Yeah,
I like it. Then you bye-week stack in reverse, or you just bye-week stack it so that you just lose whatever week Tampa Bay is on bye, and then win all your other games. I like it.
Yeah, I'll just stack up all the Jags as my backups.
This is not our normal advice, but it could work. It could work. I could see it. I agree. Gage is the interesting one. It's just I'm not, even with him dropping Mike, I'm still seeing him go earlier than what I really want to get down with.
I'm okay with 10th-ish.
Tight end. Even Brady wasn't able to convince Rob Gronkowski to come back for another year. The tight end job will come down to Cameron Brate. Could be rookie Cade Otton. It could be Kyle Rudolph, who they signed off of his couch. Who knows? Who knows? Nobody here, for me, projects inside the top 30. And I don't think any of us do any of us even have them ranked that way?
No, between the 3 of us, I went and pulled this. The highest one of us, I think one of them for somebody might have gotten as high as like 28. It doesn't matter. I'm going to give you the same advice I've done in the past.
I don't care about any of it.
If you've punted tight end and you've made it to here, I'm sorry, you punted it too far.
Yeah.
Right.
When we say punt tight end, we do have a point, but if you're dealing with this, you've waited too long.
I do think Mike actually gave the appropriate answer, though. Like, everybody looks at it and says, well, Gronk, end zone touchdown monster. Well, no, actually top 5 in the NFL was Chris Godwin in red zone targets. Right. Not to mention he already had 12 touchdowns to Mike Evans. So you have 2 wide receivers that are very capable, plus you brought over Russell Gage, who was also a touchdown monster in the red zone for Atlanta last season. So
maybe they're just going to ask Julio to gain a little bit of weight and turn him into a tight end.
Just play tight end.
Yeah.
Line up on the line. Yeah. Yeah.
That's going to help his injuries.
Yeah, that'll fix it.
Defense and kicker. I've mentioned this a few times, but for me, I have just 2 defenses in my top tier. It is Buffalo and it is Tampa Bay. If you're going to reach on a defense, and by reach, I mean 14th round, if you're going to reach on a defense, I am good with you reaching on Tampa Bay. And then They got Ryan Suckup. They're going to kick. I mean, he's getting a lot of extra points, that's for sure.
Top 10 kicker. He's in Florida.
If you're
He's
into
not in a
PATs,
done, but he is in Florida.
Well, hurricane season, so you gotta watch out for that. But
fine, but at least it'll be warm. That's kind of
Yeah.
my point. It'll be warm
Sure,
outside.
sure.
You're not kicking in a blizzard.
But yeah, otherwise, there you go. That's Tampa Bay. We did it.
Sorry for the long show, folks, but there's a lot to go through with Tampa Bay, and it's all centered around the wide receivers. Everything else is pretty much open and shut.
I mean, if you want to sum up the entire Tampa Bay show, it's what are you doing? Come on. That's basically the entire
draft these guys.
Well,
Yeah.
What's funny is normally this is one of those teams where normally we would spend 10 minutes talking about inflated projections and inflated rankings and that are based on the projections because the math doesn't add up. And this is one of those weird ones where you've got a team that's this talented in real football terms that you have actual values on. It's strange.
See, the math also isn't adding up like the Kansas City situation. This is the Kansas City of the NFC. However, the inflated projections are Rachaad White, who's not going to see the field. And then it's also factoring in Julio Jones is getting way too much projected. And Chris Godwin is basically being projected for only 10 games played. Most places you look, which is incorrect. So,
but not here.
That's also throwing off the numbers as well. But yeah, there it is. We made it. We did it. Tomorrow, moving on to a much less interesting fantasy team, Tennessee. Till then, keep up the nonsense.
I'm Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, and you can find all the guys at ImportantNonsense.com. Kaboom!